Welcome back to Women's Wealth, the Middle Way, the show that answers your questions about work, money, and family. My name's Carol Ann Fernandez,
And I'm Susan Michael.
and we're excited to be here with you guys today to share a little bit we thought about financial planning and planning for your future.
When we were thinking about today's topic, the reason we picked the power and the importance of having a financial plan, especially when you're working with an investment advisor, is recently, several times when we've had new prospective clients coming in, a couple of times they've said, well, they've told me I don't have enough to retire. I'm just not going to make it. And a little stressed. And when we sat down and we did a really thorough plan, they didn't just have enough to retire, they were going to be significantly fine. And we run our plans to 100. We run them with inflation. We always say you can go anywhere and probably get a better looking plan. But the problem was that they weren't looking at a lot of the real estate they owned. A lot of them had no mortgages on that real estate. And they had planned upon or prior to retirement selling some of those assets and bringing them into the account. And so what this kind of topic, we said, why don't we, when we do our webinar, why don't we talk about the significance and the power of a financial plan? And Carol, since you work mostly on them, I don't want to take the limelight away from you. Why don't you talk about?
Well, maybe we can start with what a financial plan is and where you can get one. So, financial plan is basically where you're just taking all of your information you have right now and looking at it and saying, based on my goals, am I able to reach them? And so, the most common one is your retirement, right? Like when I retire until I'm 100, is my graph going to make it or am I going to run short on money? And what we find is a lot of people will charge a lot of money to do a financial plan. And really, I don't think you need to be paying a lot. I think it's more just getting everything in order and saying, okay, when I retire, what income will be coming in and what is my goal? And you work a lot with on talking about what your goals are in retirement a little bit.
And goals change. And that's why Carol is certified financial planner. And one of the reasons that we think it's so important is, you know, what your goals are at 30 and your goals are at 50, or your goals are when someone is ill in the family and things have taken a turn, or you become a widow or widower, or you have grandchildren that maybe you didn't think you were going to have, and you want to be a part of their lives and help with children. We always say the greatest gift we give our children when we're doing a financial plan is that we never, ever have to go to them and ask them for help. And that's probably the number one thing we work from that premise. And then the gift is if you can leave them something, how do you do it in the most cost and tax effective way?
Yeah, and I think one piece we've noticed is a lot of people get fixated on what amount do I need when I retire to make it. And that's important, but it's not only what the overall number is, it's where is it invested and what accounts. Because one of the things that we've had a lot of discussions with clients about is you have a lot of money, but it's all in retirement accounts and none of it has been taxed. So you're going to be required to at 73 to start taking what's called these RMD or required minimum distributions. And that's going to be a big tax that you have to take out and increase your income at that point.
And so there's a couple of aspects to that is if you come in early enough, and we can start, the sooner you start, we always say you're never too young to have a financial plan or a roadmap. The younger you start, we may do a lot of Roth type of investments so that you don't have that issue later on in life. But if it's later and you have just been traditional, there are so many different vehicles that we can use now to help you kind of alleviate some of that tax.
And then we run our plans very conservatively. So we assume that your expense number you have now is going to continue until you're 100. Some of that is because we've noticed that with medical expenses later in life, maybe your expense of what you're spending on changes, but the actual number doesn't adjust too much. But Susan also talks a lot about the different stages of retirement and, planning for when you're traveling versus maybe when you're not later in life. So
I always say there's three aspects. We years ago when I started in the business, I used to run plans to 80, then we went to 90, and now we're running them to 100. And we have so many clients in their late 80s and 90s who are very cognizant, still visiting with friends. They may not be traveling to Europe or skydiving, but they definitely are enjoying life. And so I always help clients when they come in to say you should have upon retirement a visualization that you could live 3 decades after retirement. And the first decade is what we call the go-go years. you're traveling, you're maybe doing a part-time job, you may take an art class or something that you've always wanted to do, you're really enjoying life. That is not going to lower your cost of your monthly expenses. But that's a good thing. You're in the go-go years. Then we call them the slow-go years. And the slow-go years don't mean you're stopping, but you might have a couple of more doctor's appointments, and maybe you're not skydiving or, hiking the Appalachian Trail, but you're definitely still traveling and doing things. But those are what we call the slow-go years. You may not be spending as much, but then some of the cost is going to come into making sure that you're staying in shape and you are healthy. So that's a cost effect. And the last are the no-go years. And it really is not a good title for that because my father actually lived to 97, and I always use him as an example. He was in the no-go years, but he was still having lunch with his friends. He went to church every Sunday. He was involved in the little things of the town, and he loved life. And to me, those are what we call the no-go years. But Social Security and some of his savings were enough. So a lot of his investments were just compounding and growing, and he wasn't even using some of them, but he was still living life. So I think when we visualize that, how am I going to get through the next 3 decades, the go-go years, the slower years, and then the no-go years, in which maybe there's health aspects. Maybe you don't want to go to a nursing home and you want to bring in health care in, or maybe you want to start to really make sure that your children are not paying huge tax consequences when you die. Those are the things we begin earlier so that when you get to those no-go years, those are all done, and you feel really satisfied that you empowered your family during your life, then leave them with a mess.
Yeah, and what we found is it's important also in your plan to be able to run different scenarios because we have a number of clients where a lot of their assets are either, as Susan had mentioned earlier, in houses that maybe we will or will not sell, and we want to think about through when to do that, if we're going to do that, how we would use those assets if needed down the road. And then another big one is businesses, right? As business owners, a big piece of your financial plan is usually the value of that business and either how you're going to continue to have income from it for life or you're going to make a sale at some point or transfer it. And so I think it is important as you're making decisions to not only say, okay, send me some money for a new car or for a sale of a house, I'm going to give money into account, but where should I be taking that from? How do I run a different scenario? Does it make a difference if I work another 2 years or if I sell the business for this value versus taking income from it? And so it is important to have a plan that's constantly changing. We always say that, it's an evolving document. And so that's why all of our clients are required on a yearly basis to at least, if not more often, depending on their situation, to be updating those plans and just looking, are we getting closer to those goals? And have we been
And
fulfilled?
how are my assets growing? But the other thing is we work with many, many business owners. And one of the gift is we always say it's too late if you come in and say in 2 months I'm closing on my business. That discussion, yes, you do need people that are going to help you sell the business, people that are going to help you get ready to sell the business, but you also need to plan for your exit and what you're going to do with the value that you're taking out of that business. And so years in advance, if we can start that, we can actually have vehicles in which you can put money away. So let's say if you sell your firm for several $1,000,000 after taxes, you can cut that in half. But if you start ahead a couple of years, knowing that you're going to be selling within 3 to 5 years, we can actually invest in certain vehicles that you have zero to slim tax consequences after that sale. So we can actually prepare you for that sale. And so I think the whole message today is it's never too early to start. Even when you're young and just starting out, a financial plan is sort of your roadmap that's going to keep growing and changing with you.
And we've heard from women a lot that they're almost scared to do the plan. We had a client come in earlier today that was nervous about seeing the results of her financial plan. And I think it's more important to sit down and think through it. And rather than being scared about it, let's have the conversation and we can start to adjust things. As Susan just mentioned, the earlier we have, the more time we have, the easier it is to kind of reach those goals and not have as much fear around what does my plan look like and did I do anything wrong? Because, everyone has hard work money that they're saving and we want to make sure that it's working for them in the best way.
And I think for us, we all have aha moments and we have kind of the empower moments where you think, wow, that was a really great meeting. And when she left today, just so happy and so relieved. But I think what was happening, people were looking at what she had in the bank today versus the value of her wealth. We said to her, you're a very wealthy woman. Right now, you're just cash poor. And if we implement some of these aspects going forward, you will easily make it to 100 and you can enjoy life and you don't have to lower any of your expectations or your desires in retirement. And sort of those are the meetings that not only did she feel good, but we felt good when she left. And so we just thought today it was a good time, if nothing else, to give you a tidbit of is it time maybe that you either updated your financial plan or decided to start one.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining
Thank you
us.
everyone for joining us, and we will see you next month on Women's Wealth, the Middle Way.